So I'm here and I'm waiting. Someone showed up. I showed up. I don't know how many people on our, in our group are football fans. So, hi, May. I'm pretty well. Had an interesting dream last night. Apparently, I had a will-o'-the-wisp following me in my dream. Not sure why. Liv says, "Hey, chauffeur, how are you? Good." My Aurora says, "Hi, hi, my Aurora. Nice to see you guys here. Hello, happy Sunday, everyone. Yay, Ryder. Yes, we have arrived. We are here. It is awesome." So let me think. Yeah, I had the will-o'-the-wisp last night. That was just sort of an interesting thing. I actually looked it up this morning to see some stories about it. And once again, it wasn't very enlightening because it was all the old folk tales about the devil and somebody being forced to wander and then tricking people to go the wrong way and whatnot. So I'm not going to take that too seriously as far as what the mythology says about it. Because whenever they mention God and the devil, I know that it's influenced by the Christians that were there at the time. Otherwise, they wouldn't have shown up. They're not ancient stories at that point. So it's the way it is. Michelle says, hello, hello back. So it was, all right. So Liv says, do you do anything to induce your dreams or try in lucid dreams? I can't seem to shift or lucid dream no matter what I do. And Ethusa says, hello, Shifra. Hi, Ethusa. Not really at this point. It just depends on what's going on as to what kind of dreams I end up having. But you can, you know, when you're trying to get a dream about something in particular, you can sort of seed your dream state by focusing on it. It takes about 3 days before whatever it is that you're focusing on generally shows up in a dream state. So if you're looking to get information about something in particular, you can put pictures up where you're going to see them throughout the day, on the wall behind your bed, journal about it before going to sleep at night, and that kind of thing. Because, your unconscious is going to pick up that stuff and relay information back to you through your dreams that way. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the most recent video we did on hex breaking and curse breaking and stuff like that, and point out the fact that the information I gave you was from a single source, and it's always a good idea to do your own research. And the comments that some people had I thought were just great, giving us more information about some of those spells. It's the first time I've been able to discover that the information in that book, the 5,000 Spells book, is woefully incomplete when it comes to sourcing where the spell comes from and what the actual intention of that particular spell, what deities or forces it is approaching in its original state. And I personally like to know more, which is one of the reasons I haven't done that video before, because it's why I like to talk about things that I've experienced, because then I know what I do know and know what I don't know, instead of, trying to collect a bunch of information randomly from a book. But we did use a couple of the things from there, like the burying of the poppet or what have you, in order to kind of give an aim the potential curse or bad luck or whatever it might be to a different object instead of to a living person. So that's what we have done. So there you go. There's your warning. It's always good to do research. And only do if you really have some serious thing going on, if you can find someone who's expert in the field, it's a good idea. Whether it's a Native American shaman or whether it's a Santero or um, someone who specializes in those particular spells that you think might work for you, then try and see if you can find someone who it is their path and that's what they do, so then they know the ins and outs of everything. So I guess that's about it for that. Violet says hello. Hello, Violet. Writer says, I loved what you said about the universe not allowing a curse or hex on someone who has not done anything wrong. Like the universe kind of looks at the situation first before allowing some sort of karma. Yeah, and I believe that for myself for sure. I mean, I'm on good terms with the universe. We work together on stuff and it knows who I am, and that's the reason why when that crazy person who left our group decided to try and do a binding spell on me, I knew about it instantly and could so easily break it. I mean, part of the reason why curses tend to work is because the people who are cursed either know it's happened to them or sincerely believe that it's happened to them. And then your own unconscious and subconscious becomes sort of the engine that runs the spell, whether someone really did it or not. I mean, you don't even have to have anybody do anything in order to generate it yourself with anxiety and fear and focus. And so changing how you think about things is one of the first steps for self-preservation. Yeah, you don't really want to run that engine. It's a bad engine to run. But sometimes it's difficult for people to break away from their sincere belief in things. And if it is sort of surrounded by like a spiritual belief or a religion, and has all those elements in it, it can be difficult for people to separate themselves out of that and then look at the raw energy that's coming at them. So for me, the better able you are to clear yourself, your own aura, your own energy field, and do the work to feel good about who you are and be acting in accordance with what makes you feel good being who you are, the less likely something like that is either going to stick or be generated by yourself. So yeah, in that realm, belief definitely runs a lot of what's going on for a person. And I've had a number of people in the past try and do nasty things to me. When I lived in, I was in Maryland when this happened, apparently. Unbeknownst to me, a friend of mine from a few years prior at that point had fallen in with a crowd of Satanists who were studying the Satanic Bible, so that style of Satanism, and encouraged her to do some nasty spells, one which was to destroy, deface, harm an individual they considered an enemy. They did it with cookies, where they made a cookie that sort of like making a poppet, but with a cookie, and then thought about the person and then smashed the cookie, defaced the cookie, thought evil thoughts at the cookie and whatnot. And the two sisters that my at the time former friend, I'm not sure, who had fallen in with, were definitely into the seriously negative kind of stuff. And she did one to me, which I never noticed at all. It was like I had no clue anything had happened. I had no effect from it whatsoever. Apparently, my natural defenses were such that she felt the immediate backlash from attempting it and went into a hallucinatory state where she was seeing all kinds of horrible imagery and things, and then called on me in the astral plane for help. And I supposedly went to help her because she saw me. I wasn't conscious of the event, but I thought it was ironic when I heard about it that she called on me for help because I was her target. It's just sort of a interesting little byplay there, and I helped her get through it so that she didn't go completely insane that night. So when I moved back up to Canada and met her, she told me this. Uh, and she was trying not to be friends with these sisters anymore. And so, yeah, that was interesting. So I helped her get away from them. And that's when we had one of our bizarre kind of paranormal things take place. Uh, I recommended her getting rid of the stuff that the one sister had given her. And the last thing she had was a picture that the woman had drawn in pencil, I think. And so we decided to burn that. We weren't going to bury it, we were going to burn it. We wanted to utterly destroy it. And while we were burning it at the kitchen table, her spouse decided to take Polaroids of the process for some unknown reason. He just started clicking and took about 5 or 6 different Polaroids of from the beginning to the end of this process. And then when he showed us the Polaroids, it was quite bizarre because it's like at one point you can clearly see a hand reaching out towards the picture, and you can see through the hand, and it's between us and the thing we're burning. So there's like spatial orientation with it. And then at the end, there's this mist that's behind us between our backs and a beaded curtain that was hanging behind us, and it's spread out like this as the picture's finished being burnt, and it's like dissipating this whatever this was. And so that was pretty interesting. Never did get to keep the pictures. I don't know what he did with them, but yeah, so that was definitely interesting. And then the other sister was very angry about this. My friend getting away from them, and she did some nasty poppets with pins in them. And I had, like, my son, who was just a little over a year old at the time, I think, and my son and my husband both at the time had effects. My son had horrific nightmares. My husband felt like somebody was putting pins in his body. One night I was going to bed and I suddenly saw these 3 poppets hanging from a rafter, like just some kind of sort of like I called it a rafter, but it was something. And I knew that they were of me and my son and my husband. And that was one of the times I actually did a binding spell, sort of as a self-defense kind of thing, and an automatic. This was it must have been 73, 74, somewhere in there. And so got confirmation from it later because somebody who was involved in it the years before when it had first happened actually visited that person's house and saw the poppets. So I followed the energy stream. I sort of kept on alert, and one day in my kitchen I felt this woman's presence coming at me and knew that she was the one with the poppets, and I followed her energy, saw her, and then just did a binding and separating her from this energy that she was using to such negative effect. And she was aware of it the last second before I finished, because I got this flash of, oh my God, and then bam, it was gone. She was completely gone. And the energy was gone, kind of thing. And then we didn't have any more trouble. But it was interesting to me because it's like I knew it was happening, but it wasn't affecting me the way it was my son and my husband. So it was interesting. Anyway, so Lauren says, lots of love from the UK. I love watching your videos. Thank you very much. Emerald says, hello, everyone. Hello, Emerald. Desideradum says, howdy, Shifra. Wow, what a creepy story. Yeah, it was kind of creepy. Do you think this person created a servitor? It sounds like more than a thought form. Yikes. Well, with a poppet, she was trying to make like an image of me and my son and my husband, and was using that as like the in a sympathetic magic or whatever. So whatever she did to them happened to us. That was the whole point. But again, didn't happen to me, but I wasn't about to put up with that kind of stuff. And that's the thing, is like, people who are prone to throwing hexes and curses are usually insecure people that are easily offended by anything that happens around them and feel they have a right to punish other people for making them unhappy. At least that's been my experience. I really haven't seen a good reason for throwing a curse at somebody, personally. I mean, usually people are quite busy destroying their own lives without any help from anyone else. So, why waste the energy trying to speed it up unless there's an imminent threat, as it were?
Yeah, I've always focused on self-defense.
Yeah, Ian says he's always focused on self-defense. Mary says, Ryder says, never made a poppet before. Surely using magic in such a negative way has an effect on their mental health and standard of life. You would think so, but some people are really good at putting it off.
It'll happen, though.
Eventually it'll catch up to them for sure. But, yeah, there are some people that are skilled enough at the negative stuff that they have sort of a replacement, kind of like with the coffin spell, where the bad energy they should be getting back goes to another location. Eventually, though, that's going to build up to the point where whatever they're doing isn't going to work for the long haul. And who wants to be that kind of a person? It's like once they die, the things they see afterwards are probably pretty raw and not fun. I can't imagine that would be a fun thing to do. And poppets can be made for positive things, not just negative things. So you can make a poppet of yourself. If you need healing, physical healing, emotional healing, or whatever, you can, put herbs in there for protecting your own energy and for boosting your own health or your own energy field and that kind of thing. And so, we think of the voodoo doll poppet type of thing that you see in movies as being the main reason for making them, but it isn't really. I think more people make poppets for positive work than they do for negative work overall. So Mary says, hi Schieffer, that was scary, protection all around. Let's talk about the Fae. Well, I had the Will-o'-the-Wisp, who's maybe a type of Fae. And Ryder says, wow, I agree with Ian, defense all the way. And Daniel says, wow, thank you for your sharing. Interesting, 411. So that's a number for information. Okay. Annie Luhu says, hello from Texas, enjoying your stories. Actually, all your videos are enjoyed. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And Violet says, your hair is matching the shawl in a very nice way. You wear that very well. And I did. I made this one. This is my shawl, and I made it. And I was very happy with it. I had made it another one out of the same material, and it didn't work. I didn't like it, apparently, even though I liked the color, because I wouldn't wear it. So I took the whole thing apart and started from scratch. So I'm much happier with this version of that. So, yes. Desideratum says, I could imagine a protective curse. Basically, some nutcase tries to send shade and it backfires on them immediately. That would be a good charm. Yeah, not a bad idea. So someone did write in some questions, and they wanted to talk about the elements a little bit. Daniel says, I feel like there is more light on the planet and more love and light. Love you all. Wish you all happiness in heaven. Thank you, Daniel. And I think that focusing on that is a good thing. So the person that wrote in this question, they say, what does it really mean when we talk about the elements? Earth, air, fire, and water. We call them elements like in the periodic table, but they're not. And this is true. They're not elements like iron and uranium and hydrogen and helium and so forth. The periodic table is a different kind of an element altogether. But I think we call them elements because they make up the character of things, and so it's an element of whatever it is you're looking at. There's a lot of different ways to use the word. So,
I'd add that they were in use before they came up with the periodic.
Yes, Ian says they were in use before they came up with the periodic table, so the first understanding of elements was not helium and hydrogen and all that other stuff. I should keep on going here. So Daniel says, I feel like there is more light on the planet and more love. You look so amazing in green. Well, it's actually blue. The color correction on this thing sometimes makes things, well, my hair is green. Yes. Okay, I'll take that. How can I stop someone from spying on me astrally and physically? Yeah. I'll get back to that in a second. So stay with it. So don't, I need to answer the question because that's why you write them in, is you want me to respond to the question. So I came up with my own kind of chart here that has the elements and the alchemical symbols on them and what the elements represent in the different. I don't think you can really see it all that well on the camera, but basically, the elements themselves are actually descriptions of the properties of the things that compose the other planes. So as Akaja trickles down into the mental and the astral plane, these different forces take on these different properties. And one of the ways of looking at the element is to remember that it's not talking about the physical element itself. I know a lot of people have that issue when they're first starting out. In particular, we've had any number of people ask that question, where, how can wood be associated with the fire element, because wood burns, and that's because they're looking at the elements as just the physical representations of these forces, not as the forces themselves. And it causes a lot of confusion. And there really aren't any better terms to describe these forces. And each element's going to have its different properties. Like fire is expansive. You can see that in its physical form. And that is what it's like. It's, it's hot, it's expansive, it wants to go outward into the world. And, it's about energy, creativity, that kind of forcefulness. It has its negative aspects, of course, as well. But it's also about courage and daring, knowledge, as well as the passion that people associate with the fire. So each one of the elements it has those kinds of properties, and when you understand them well enough, then you can put them together to create your spells or your workings, or learning how to work with the element, clearing yourself out of the negative aspects of the element. Where water is the opposite of fire in that it's contracting and cold, and fire is expansive and hot, and earth is like dense and solid, where air is dispersing and light. And so we don't have other words to describe them. There's not a separate language that we're using in order to describe the metaphysical properties of things. And so that's one of the reasons for that. And although it would be nice if we had a incredibly different language to describe all these things, just something you get used to figuring out on your own. All right. Let's see. So as far as stopping someone from spying on you astrally and physically, well, if they're doing it physically, then get a restraining order. And, some kind of an alarm system on the physical level. Astrally, you can do this similar kind of thing. You can ignore them, but if you don't want them there, you can put up a do not trespass sign specifically for their energy, and I've had to do that from time to time. I had to do that when we left the group up in Newport, because the high priestess up there kept coming in to check on me to see what I was up to decide whether she needed to bind me or not. I don't know why people are always deciding they need to stop me because I'm not doing anything. But yeah, it's all in their own heads. But
reflection of their own guilty.
Oh yes, a reflection of their own guilty self, as Ian says. And but you can do that too. I don't know how to explain exactly how I do that, but I have my own alarm system when it comes to the mental and astral plane. And if I have specifically said that this one person energy field is not permitted, if they cross my boundary, I'm alerted to that, and then I kick them out and make them go away. And they have to at that point, because you're in charge of your own space. It's all about boundaries again. You've got to set up your boundaries. So it's an opportunity for you to learn more about how to make those boundaries and to stick to them.
I might add, if a person's into that type of magic, the Golden Dawn had at least, I'm sure they still do, an invisibility ritual for astral invisibility, which consists of covering yourself with an Akashic egg, basically.
So you can make yourself invisible so they can't find you. And I actually did that once. I met a woman, this was before I had any books or anything like that, really, because I was just out of high school, I think, at this point when I met this woman, friend of my mom's, and she was certain that something was like trying to get her in. She lived in a high-rise apartment building, like on the 17th floor, and so I set up an invisibility thing around her, and then I thought, but if someone can actually see this, then they're going to see there's a hole in the building, which means that they'll know that there's something there, so that doesn't work by itself. And so in that case, I set up a series of mirrors to reflect the apartments around her, above her, and below her, so that whatever was happening in the other parts of the building nearby would appear as if they were happening in her space, and so it would not be obvious that there was a hole. And she was very happy with the results, so that worked out for her. That was one of those seat in my pants kind of thing. How do I fix this? How do I solve this issue? That sort of stuff. So, yeah. So Desideratum says, elementals are an archetype that's sentient. Well, they're not an archetype, they're an actual thing. They're a being that exists as in that particular element. So
That's all they consider.
And that's all they are. Like a fire elemental only consists of fire. A water elemental only consists of water. There are beings that are associated with water that aren't elementals, and in all of them. But no, they're actual spirit beings, and you can interact with them directly or not, depending. Canary says, at Ryder, I know I sent out my own psychic message of get a life. Makes it worse when they ignore you in real life. Yeah, well, got to keep up those boundaries. I know I meant psychic, not physically. Okay, so no alarm system then. But this is a boundary issue for you. You have to be able to kick out their thought forms. They're coming at you and stuff like that. And every time they come at you, do a do not disturb hand in their face and tell them to F off. Just like, that's it. Not okay. And if they keep on doing it, do it more forcefully and throw them back at their body or their mind or wherever it's coming from, so that it becomes an uncomfortable situation for them. Whenever they think about you, they're like, ew, I don't want to think about that person because I feel bad, hopefully, when I do. Daniel says, is love a fifth element and beauty a sixth element? Laugh out loud, restraining order. The fifth element is the Akasha, and I actually want to do a whole video on love and what it is, because that's a good question. And love to me there's different forms of it. So it can exist as an emotion, as a feeling, and as an energy. And in different realms have different effects when it comes to that.
That was a good answer.
Thank you. Canary says, that's good information. Thank you so much. I've asked my guide to keep them away, but he was reluctant to, as the person was sending me healing energy that was helping me apparently, but it was weird. Okay, so here's the thing. Free will and self-determination are the hallmarks of any magical path, because that is really the point. And as a healer, energy healing and everything else, I don't send people energy unless they've asked for it, because I consider that a violation of their free will. unless they happen to be in a coma in the hospital, in which case I go by the rules that an EMT would have and conclude implied consent. If somebody is on the verge of death, why would they say no to energy? Unless, of course, I know them personally and they really don't like me. So in that case, they probably don't want it. But sending someone healing energy when they don't want to have your energy is still a personal violation of your energy field. And anything that crosses your personal boundaries, energetic boundaries, spiritual boundaries, whatever they are, is a form of assault, in my opinion. And whether they think it's good, or even if your guide thinks it might be helpful to you, it should be up to you, not up to them. This is self-determination. So you need to, determine if you are okay with it, and if you're not, you can get your healing energy from somewhere else. It doesn't have to come from someone you don't like. So Phoebe says, I had my first lucid dream ever. It felt like it was a start to manifesting. How can I keep opening myself up, both dreams and waking, to interact with my guides, elementals, etc.? Learning how not to be too distracted by your own thoughts and being in the moment as much as possible. That would be the thing. I mean, the reason why most people don't see things is because they're focused on something else. It's like they're driving or focusing on their favorite TV show or thinking about their neighbors or whatever it might be, and they're not actually in their environment, in the moment, in themselves to experience whatever might be nearby. So that's the reason why children have more of those experiences than adults, because children don't have all those things in their head already. They're kind of like, they come out as a mostly blank slate as far as these experiences are concerned, and so they're open to all input. They haven't determined what's good and what's bad input. And what happens is that as we grow and we get feedback from people nearby, they tell us what's good and bad input, and then we incorporate that into our ability to discern between this and that. And so if somebody has said that that's bad input, unless you're actually consciously opening yourself up to all input again, then you're not going to see it. You're not going to experience it. You're not going to feel it. So it's a conscious effort that we have to make as adults in order to open up those abilities again and stop prejudging the world and decide what's valid, what's not valid, what's important, what's not important. So that's what I would say. Let's see. So Ryder says, I only send healing now to those who ask me for it, or if they agree to me offering. Very busy with other things these days. Yes, you, as a healer, have to take care of yourself, too. Mary says, I felt their energy was so shocked when I called them out for what they were, for who they were. I don't think that they thought I was that advanced. Well, that's always fun. I had a client try to do that to me, and he was quite surprised when I wouldn't let him in. Phoebe says, oh cool, I always use a love mantra when I meditate, work on my energy. Magical Mermaid says, so sending someone healing without permission is bad karma? I consider it rude at the least. And not being self-aware of the fact that our energy is real and has an impact on other people. I always ask permission. And for me, I like to know where they are exactly if I'm going to send them energy, because, if their name is John Smith, how many of those are out there? When I'm doing astral work, if I'm going to try and clear a house, I need to know the physical address, because some random house in some other country, somewhere around the world or whatever, needs help. I need to be more specific. Maybe that's a lack on my part. I don't know, but still, everyone works differently. And I even, when my daughter sent me up to do a healing on an infant, I was still trying to find out if it was okay, because you don't know. Sometimes curing an illness can mean that you have now delayed the doctors finding something more serious, because now there's nothing in the person's body to urge them to seek assistance, and they may have found something that needed to be taken care of that would have saved the person's life. So healing by itself is not positive or negative. It's just what it is.
Exactly.
And so, you know, and some people need an illness for a reason we may not understand or comprehend. Maybe this is their way of punishing themselves, which is not necessarily healthy, but it's not up to us as individuals to decide that they need to let go of that now. Again, maybe letting go of it now would bring other things up that could cause them harm. So there's never any clear this is always positive, this is always negative kind of thing. It's always situational, and that's part of this process and part of this path is to think about what those consequences might be. And if self-determination, boundaries, and free will is where we're at, we need to extend that to other people and be okay with saying no. So that would be an input for that question, I guess. Canary says they ghosted me for over a year, so it's weird and the person sticks around and it's just strange. Yeah. What about sending healing vibes like the earth and everyone as a whole? Okay, so like the Amethyst Crystal Web project we started, we're focusing on energizing the amethyst crystals around the planet and the ones that we have to radiate joy, tranquility, and peace. But and anyone who wants to access that can, but it's not required that anyone access it. It's like we're putting out this general energy field that for those people who might sense it or might need it or who are working with it can tap into that energy that we're feeding. Feeding the earth, there's no negative for that I can see because, you know, the earth needs plenty of energy. So focusing on that is just perfectly fine. But people are here for different reasons. We're all at different stages of development. What's right for me isn't right for you, isn't right for your neighbor, isn't right for the pastor down the street, isn't right for the kid riding the bike. There's a lot of variety going on out there, and so, and healing means different things to different people. So it's not a blanket thing, which is why we ask for permission. I have some people that are Christian who pray for me, and I'm okay with that because I know them personally, and I know that their intent is at this point not trying to change me and make me someone that they consider better, like maybe, you know, more like them and less like me. You know, so if you're getting energy from someone that you know and they're accepting of your path, and you don't really want to generate like an entire group of people who are trying to save you, their version of saving you. So think about that, how it would be for being on the receiving end. Like you may have pure motives, and you know, you may feel like what you're sending is just a pure healing energy. But imagine if you were in charge of a giant church of some kind and you got all of your parishioners to send a thought process, a healing energy in what they considered to be good, which could mean turning you back into a Christian or whatever the religion might be. And if you become the focus of like 100 or 1,000 people trying to think you into a different spot, that would definitely be what I would consider a psychic attack. So, you know, they wouldn't consider it. It's about perspective. So you need to think about the perspective of this. And, you know, we make mistakes. It doesn't mean that now that you sent energy to someone who didn't ask for it, terrible things are going to happen to you. It just means that you're learning more about when and where to send it, and when's a good time and who's a good person to send it to, because, you know, we're all evolving.
Like good karma from it.
Yeah, you can certainly get good karma from it. So Ryder says, ghosting you or got a life like you told them to? And Phoebe says, that's always what I thought in animals too. So that's so my problem. My mind can't quiet. Daniel says, what's not to love? You guys are so sweet and caring and wise. Well, thank you very much, Daniel. Going to make us blush. I appreciate the work you guys are doing. Plus, you guys have a sense of humor. Yes, and having a sense of humor is very important because without it, we're just taking ourselves way too seriously. Phoebe said, thank you, great advice. And Canary says, ghosting me in real life. Yes, that's what I figured. So Lisa says, when I was a young girl, I had the same nightmare every night. So eventually, when I went to sleep, I kept saying, I'm not dreaming. And eventually, I didn't. How can I remember my dreams again? Okay, so the simplest way to start remembering your dreams again is to put a notebook and a pen or a pencil next to your bed on a nightstand or under your pillow or wherever. Before you go to sleep at night, write in your journal, dream journal, and say, I'm going to remember my dreams. Whatever I remember, I'm going to write it down. And then when you wake up in the morning, even if you only remember I saw a road or there was a light or I saw the color red or whatever it might be, write it down. And eventually your subconscious will get the message that you're willing to let yourself dream again and will start to communicate with you. And you should know that most nightmares aren't there to try and scare you, they're there to try and warn you. And you aren't hearing the warning. And so working with nightmares is an important process too. So then there's a whole thing. I did a video on dream interpretation, I think, and get you started on that process. And you can watch that video and get more information about it. So Ryder wants to know from Canary, did they tell you the reasons why they don't want to be around? Because it's only ghosting if they give no explanation. Canary says, the God of Christians, yes. At Ryder, no, they just stopped talking to me one day. Daniel says, laughter, what if they want to clone you and make a dozen of you, like Barbie? Well, I don't know. Cloning currently is illegal, supposedly, anyway, although I think the Chinese are experimenting with it at the moment. So Phoebe says, Ryder says, maybe perhaps for your own protection, healthy people don't just do that. Phoebe says, can you send out love, high vibrations, not healing to someone you know, family, but don't feel comfortable telling them you are like working with energy stuff? Well, you can certainly hold people in the light in your mind and have a chat with them. Sometimes being able to process stuff is the only level from which you can do it, to tell them how you feel and so forth, if that's what you're thinking of.
Personally, I don't think there's any problem with just somebody love myself. That's pretty hard to say. I don't like your love.
Well, they can not like your love because it depends on what kind of love it is, right? That's another whole subject. What is love energy? Is it intrusive or is it open and without expectation? I mean, that's part of it. If what you're doing, you're hoping to get a response from, then it isn't a gift. You're not doing it from the reason of just letting them do whatever they want with it. True gifts are given without an expectation of return. If you get a return, that's fine. It's not that you're not looking for anything ever. But if the only reason for giving somebody energy is because you want them to notice that you're a better person or something like that, then it's not going to work the same way. It's complicated. Life is seriously complicated. That's all there is to that. Ryder says, healthy people just don't ghost people. Emotionally healthy people don't ghost people. I totally agree with that. If they do, that means that, they're harboring something and they're not talking about it. Canary says, I know it was very strange. It was someone who was trying to teach me more about the path and magic, and everything just ignored me one day. I don't know why. Well, it could be that they were jealous or worried that you were getting too good. You can never know. If they won't tell you, you will never know why. It's probably nothing to do with you personally, though. Lisa says, oh, thank you so much. I will do that beginning tonight. That must be about the dreams. And Jacqueline says, yay, I didn't miss the whole thing. Come, you did not. You are here. Yay. Michelle says, at Phoebe, I always send healing energy for family members, but before starting, I ask mentally permission with the help of their spiritual guides to send that energy. When I did that with the child, they didn't give me any information. Kid had 2 guardian angels, so I set it up so that the infant could decide himself, his higher spirit, whether he wanted to stay in the world or not, because sometimes people are ready to go. And he took the balloon, apparently, and healed himself the balloon full of healing energy because then he was out of the hospital. And my daughter forgot to call me to tell me that it had worked. Annoying. Okay. Jacqueline says, when I went to send healing or loving energy, I burn herbs and blow the smoke to the wind, sending it to the person. Always add a catchphrase to when you're doing it. I'm sending you this energy with love, and you are free not to accept it. It's like that way you're acknowledging the fact that they may not want it. Phoebe says, makes sense. I was definitely speaking not with any intentions of getting anything back, but it's always good to think carefully about intentions. Never thought of it as an intrusion, but makes sense. Okay, so I had a client years ago who was, she was in a bad car accident, and she was in a huge amount of pain. And I specialize in working with people who are in physical pain. And I actually got her to the point where she wasn't in physical pain. And the first thing she did when she wasn't in pain was go out dancing and get in pain again. Because in her mind, she was in an extremely abusive relationship with a guy who almost killed her more than once. He beat her up really bad. And when she got into this car accident, and she was so fragile from the car accident, he stopped beating her. And in her mind, she connected her being in this state of pain with her being safe with this guy. So as soon as she was out of pain, she was afraid, so she had to put herself back in pain. This is what I mean by we don't always know what's going on. It became very clear to me that there wasn't much I could do to help her. And then she was moving in with him again and decided he had changed and all this other stuff. And I had one of my channeling moments that happened the last session I saw her. I can't even remember what I told her at this point, but I just told her, I did my seer thing apparently, and I just told her what could happen and told her what she could do about it if it did indeed happen and what she could expect, and hoped that it would stick in there somewhere enough that maybe she could save her own life. But I don't know what happened after that. So that's what I mean by you don't know for sure why somebody is sick, or it might be serving a purpose we don't understand. That's certainly a purpose that I can relate to, but can't get behind for myself. I would get out of the situation instead of keeping the pain. So, we're all in different states of reality when it comes to this. Daniel says, I saw you and Ian at the disco. It was the 80s night, and you guys danced the night away. Was that in a dream? Because we're not dancing at this point. Phoebe says, is there anything wrong, selfish, with self-healing? Should we be careful with anything regarding healing ourselves in general? Learning how to take care of yourself and counting yourself as one of the things in the universe that's worth being healthy is something that's important to do. A lot of times healers get so into healing other people, they don't think that they deserve healing themselves, and that's part of a mental process. I was definitely in that state for a long time. The first time I went to actually see a healer myself, I could hear my unconscious talking about it, and I tallied up all the people that I'd done healings for and how I had helped all these other people, and so that now it was okay for me to get some healing myself and to allow some healing to take place in my own body. This is wrong thinking. It's a process. We all go through it. So taking care of yourself is just as important as giving to other people, if not more so, because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to take care of anybody.
May I add something?
Sure.
As far as karma is concerned, if it's not your karma to be healed, you simply won't be able to heal yourself. So it's not really that you cause an issue by trying, normally.
I agree. If you all heard that. If you didn't, let me know and we'll repeat it. But yeah, healing yourself, taking care of yourself, that's the boundaries again. Healthy boundaries. You are just as important as the rest of the universe. Michelle Mayan says, spiritual bank account. Okay. Phoebe says, I feel like I could be selfish starting with myself. I don't think so. And what is this word selfish? You know, we get into these definitions again where selfish is bad and selfless is good. So less of the self, more of the self. Everything is in balance. It's like you are just as important as everyone else on the planet. And like I said, take care of yourself. It's okay. Mistress Morticia says, happy I found your channel. Glad to see you. So Phoebe says, good points. I'm so glad I caught this. Ryder says, can be difficult to receive if you are not used to receiving and you have become so used to giving. That's a fact. And that's the other thing, is like giving something to someone only works if they're willing to accept the gift. And so it's like, it's a two-part process. So sometimes allowing someone else to help you is the gift you can give them. If you know what I mean, it's like you can't receive something if you won't let it, and you can't get something if you won't let it come in. I said that already. You can't give something if someone won't let you. And so it's like it's an exchange of energy. Giving and receiving is definitely an exchange of energy between two people or between you and part of the universe. And you definitely need to include yourself in the getting back part. Ryder says, yes, I understand what you mean, Shifra. Okay. Let's go back up. Phoebe says, how can I reach out to elementals the right way? I don't want anything in return, but I do feel drawn to earth healing and those things. Well, I don't think there's a wrong way to do earth healing. And I don't think it needs to be done through the elementals. So I think I'm not I'm not understanding the import of that. So try to phrase it in a different way. Because I mean, the elementals they just exist. They are what they are. I don't think they have. The elementals don't require healing.
No, but there is a method to get in contact with them if you have a little clairvoyance, and that is to dive yourself into the element.
Right.
So in the earth, you could dive right down into the.
That would be astrally or mentally.
Yeah.
And what they say about that, if you decide to go visit them in their elemental state kingdom, you don't approach them, they approach you. It's considered rude and somehow not a good thing in all the literature, or most of the literature that I've read that I would believe was accurate of that. So if you decide to practice trying to enter into an elemental kingdom, like, then just look and see what's going on and then wait. And if they notice you and decide they want to approach you, then you can have a conversation with them. So that's how that works. So I guess they have their own boundaries and they want them to be respected. I guess that's the thing, right? Okay, so Mary says, at the end of a ritual, after you have asked for the presence of a goddess or god, what do you say to let them know the ritual is over and they can go or stay? Well, basically, you thank them for attending and for being present. Then they know you're done. And if you're doing a whole circle and you're also bringing in the elements and so forth, then you do everything in reverse. And, you undo the circle, thank the element for attending, saying it can go its way or do what it wants. Stay if you will, go if you must is the most common phrasing in the books that you'll find, but that's the idea. Some people like to be more elaborate where, leave this space harming none as you go, just in case they, I don't know, got a fire spirit mad and they thought they might burn down the house next door. I'm not sure exactly what, but I've heard that said. It's going to depend upon your own personal style for that. But yeah, the whole ritual format, there's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The middle is where the energy is pulled in and either sent out or sent down, whatever it is that the purpose of the main part of the ritual is. And then when you're done with that part, then you reverse the process. So if you cleanse yourself, draw a circle on the 3 planes, call in the elements and the directions to protect your space, call in the god or the goddess or whatever entity, deity you happen to be working with, and ask them to be there, either as an invocation or an evocation. Do the body of the ritual, whether it's healing or scrying or whatever it happens to be, or just celebrating the change of the seasons. Then tell the god, the goddess, the powers, the deities, or whatever, and thank them for their attendance. And, as they leave, thank the elements for coming and allow them to leave, and undraw the circle on the 3 planes and come back and then go eat. Important part, eat after you're done, because magic is hungry work. Daniel says, I'm a dreamer and a dancer, a Pisces, so it was more of a daydream. I just see things and you guys were having fun. Yeah, well, we have fun most of the time. And it's always nice the idea of us dancing. We did a lot of dancing. In fact, when we met, it was on the dance floor that I was able to approach Ian for the first time. It was an accidental date. That was sort of our inception story. It was on the 5th of July. And we were doing a double date, and the guy everyone thought I was going out with, I wasn't. And he wanted to hang with the other woman who was coming, and Ian and I were kind of left to our own devices, trying to figure out what to do. And I really liked his energy from meeting him before, and I could tell he was extremely shy, and got him on the dance floor and orchestrated several accidents.
Yay.
Yeah, he says yay, so that I could get closer. And by the end of the dance, we were right next to each other. And then I took him home, and he never left. So that was, 1991. So 30 years ago, come July, was when we went home together, and he's been with me ever since. So yeah, dancing is always a good thing, and I love dancing. I was a belly dancer and a ballroom dancer too, so I like the dancing. So someone else's guide and someone crossed over. Okay, I gotta go back apparently. I missed the first beginning of that. No, I didn't. Kept asking me to send someone healing to a toxic family member I cut off, and I didn't, and kept ignoring the request. The medium even told me to do it. Advice? It is your choice. I mean, if somebody asked me to send energy to my father when he was still alive, I would have punched him in the face.
And make sure, if anything like that, the energy external, in other words, because you sense something to them, and if it comes out of yourself, you can leave a vacuum and suck in a bad tendency if the person has them. Bad energy.
Yeah, the spirit world can give us all kinds of advice and information and everything else, but the decision is up to us. And they're looking at it from a different perspective. So if this person was abusive to you, I consider this another way of victim blaming, making the victim take care of the abuser. It's not okay with me, but that's me. So Mistress Morticia says they would only come with you or to you if you asked. Taylor says hello. Hi, Taylor. Phoebe says yes, just like what boundaries to be aware of for non-humans. Yeah, you gotta have boundaries for everything, because if you don't, they will walk all over you. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. It's like when I have cats, they know their boundaries. So, and some people, they can't set boundaries at all, and cats just walk all over them, literally, because they let them. So if you let them, they will. That's the way that works. So Violet says, if you are calling in an element or deity, what is the general best amount of time to spend time with them? How long do yours take?
Depends on your concentration.
Right, it depends on how versed you are and how long you've been at it. I mean, at this point, when I can go like this and call in the air element without much thought, because I've practiced it so much and I've set up. So if Ian and I are out like at the doctor's office or something and there's some really weird energy around, I'll just go like that and cast a circle around us and just go like that even, and make a little ball of energy to protect us from things. So it's a matter of practice. So in the beginning, you can take longer to do it, because if you really want to pull it in, you want to try and feel those aspects we talked about a little bit earlier. Like when you're pulling in the east and the air, you want to try and generate a feeling of a breeze coming through you, and that sense of lightness, that you don't weigh as much, to really feel that the element is there. And with the fire, you want to try and imagine the heat and the warmth coming in, and the expansion and so forth. So it helps you to become more acquainted with the properties of those elements as you practice. And you'll find some of them are easier than others, and that gives you a clue as to where your balance and imbalances are. Like, I have a pretty easy time calling in the air and the water, because I was pretty much all air and water as a kid, and those are mostly my psychic abilities are associated with them. I had a hard time with fire because I remember being burned at the stake, which kind of sucked. And then the hardest time with earth, because I wasn't raised in an environment with boundaries, and earth is definitely about boundaries. I mean, that's one of the things that it helps you with, is setting your space. And so those are the two elements I work with, and I've pretty much solved the problems that I had with earth, because people were constantly talking about how grounded I am. And so, there's no one answer for that. It's just going to really depend upon your experience and how much you've had with that particular element and how comfortable you are with it. So, like when I'm doing a teaching circle, I figure out what a person's most difficult element is, and I put them in that element to work with it. You can't get better if you don't try, right? Canary says, I sometimes worry about offending certain spirits that I don't know much about. I normally stick to who comes to me. Well, most spirits are pretty open about us not being as smart as we like to think we are, and they're really hard to actually offend, but it's always a good idea to be cautious. It shows respect in the first place, and they can tell, they can tell that. So Ryder says, I say the same things to let them know the ritual is over, and I tell them they are welcome to mingle for a while after, as friends would coffee, tea, biscuits, etc. All right. So Phoebe says, cute. Daniel says, so sweet, I see you guys dancing. Okay, that was about us getting together. Dora Mifra says, you are beautiful, thank you very much. Phoebe says, I'm new here. Do you do one-to-one sessions at all? Not yet. I'm thinking about it. Probably through Zoom or something like that, I think. But I'm working my way up to that. But first, I'm exploring all of this. Neri says, right, thanks so much for that. I took care of them enough, but I normally really trust spirit and do what they ask. But in this case, they're unlucky. Like I said, it's always good to set a boundary. Mary says, hearing you talk about Ian reminds me that Valentine's Day is coming. I heard that there was a pagan holiday associated with Valentine's Day called Lupercalia or something. I think that Lupercalia is a Roman holiday, and and it has to do with orgies and tearing people apart, I think. I don't know enough about it, though. Maybe someone else can fill you in or do some research. And then, of course, there's the St. Valentine's Massacre, but, that was an event with some mobsters, I believe. Dream Life Tarot says, joyful greetings. Any tips on bringing in a true love I've been dreaming of? Also, an ultimate protection tip from Envy. True love is something that you have to be ready for. I mean, we don't know how we found each other. We really don't. It was a series of coincidences and miracles and things like that, and the fact that I recognized him immediately, it took him a little bit longer to recognize me as being the person that we wanted to spend our time with for the rest of our lives. But your best bet is being the best version of yourself and working on you. Looking for love out there almost always means that you have an expectation of what the perfect person is going to be like. And that means that you're not open to receiving whatever might actually be coming. So a sense of just, doing your own thing, working on yourself, getting your boundaries, know what you like, what you don't like, and paying attention to the red flags if you meet somebody that has some of the qualities you think you want and some that you don't. The main thing with a true love is actual communication and being able to see them for who they are and loving them for their imperfections as much as for the things that fit. You have to enjoy the other person and allow them to change and transform so that they can allow you to change and transform, because it's not like in a fairy tale where you meet Prince Charming and you go off together and that's the end of the story, because no one wants to talk about the nitty-gritty stuff that happens later. We just want to have the, ooh, I found you. So, it's if you aren't being truly yourself, then whoever you do find isn't going to be the right person for you. So being honest with who you are, that's one of the things I valued about Ian immediately. He was always himself and always told me exactly where he was at. So there was no room for my imagination to take it and turn it into something else. So being well defined as a person is really the only true way to find a true love. You can find dalliances galore without any problem. If you do a spell to try and attract someone to you and you think you know who it's supposed to be, then you're intrusive. You're trying to violate their free will by trying to make them attracted to you. If they're not attracted to you already, you should just not pursue that, because that is a recipe for disaster. That's a whole ego kind of a thing that's going on. And, like for me, I was attracted to all the wrong men for many, many years because of my father and what he did to us. And my unconscious was trying to find a father figure, someone like my father, and make them love me so that I would feel like I was valued. And because of that, I kept attracting people who weren't capable of love, because my father was not capable of what I would consider love. And so it was a doomed proposition. So I kept failing over and over again because of that, until I started healing myself, my inner self. So I wasn't looking for something outside of me to fulfill me. And that's when Ian and I met. I still had work to do, obviously, but still, I had done the majority of that and realized what wasn't okay with me. And I didn't need to have someone other in order to fulfill myself. And then I could find a partner, which is what Ian is, a true partner. He is a true individual, and I am a true individual, and we like each other. We like our personalities, we like our quirks, we like our noises. I made some noise today in the kitchen. He said, "That's a lovely noise. I like that noise." And I can't even remember what it was. I'm a noisemaker. Language is not fulfilling enough for everything. So as far as ultimate protection tip from envy, not caring about what they think about you. You can't stop other people from thinking whatever they want. You can't stop them from envying you if they've got their own issues. And envy is a personality, a lack, where instead of working on themselves and getting what they need to be who they are, they're pining about the fact that you seem to have what they're looking for. And so, you can't fix that. They have to fix that.
You put up a shield, though.
Well, yeah, you can certainly shield yourself from that kind of thing, but you can't stop it from happening. You can't stop people from gossiping about you, coming to the wrong conclusions about you if they never ask you what's really going on. If they don't believe what you say, there's nothing you can do about that. I mean, there's just a lot of things that are out of our control. So the main thing is working on yourself and being happy with who you are. And if you're happy with who you are, it doesn't matter what they think or what they envy or what they say. I mean, it can disrupt your life, there's no doubt about it. But in the ultimate level sense of things, it doesn't matter. Like I said, I have no clue why so many different witches here and there thought I was attacking them. It's like, I don't really care about what they're doing. But, It's all on them. And this is the whole thing about projection. Most people don't meet each other. They meet the projection they're looking for from someone else, and that's the reason why relationships often don't work. Because once that person asserts who they really are and sort of shatters the projection that you're using on them, then it becomes a miserable relationship, and then things are splitting apart. We all like to learn the hard way. That seems to be the way it is. Most people learn the hard way. And that's that child within where we think everything is us. So we're out looking. So I guess that's about all I can say on that. The Dark Adventures of Sabrina Spellman. Just popping in to say hi. Hi, Jaleesa. Keisha says hi to Jaleesa, turning my notifications on for you. Well, thank you. Then you'll know when I'm on. Keisha says, glad to be within a Fae presence. Ryder says, would be awesome to have a Zoom meeting with you, Shifra. Yes. I'm going to see about what we can do. I'm doing it right now through Patreon. I had my first one. I have to be sure that I don't do too much, otherwise then I'm not taking care of myself like I'm telling you all who should take care of you. But we'll see how it goes. Yes, wow, amazing. Eons for everybody. Eons, E-O-N-S. Oh no, I am a free will lover. Okay. Yes, you definitely want to be a free will lover. Canary says, I would never, ever, ever, ever cast a love spell. Neither would I. Ryder says, I don't like love spells either. I know the feeling. Phoebe says, I always thought love spells were a bad idea. Apparently I gave them the impression that I thought it was a bad idea, so I guess I did a good job of expressing myself. Nice how you found each other. Yeah, so bizarre. And Dream Life Tarot says, we so amazing. Me too. I always say language is limited. I make sounds and noises. Yep, I'm a noisemaker. Canary says, people like that have probably ended up cursing themselves or attracted to many unreliable entities. Yes, probably. Delisa says, out of curiosity, what does your everyday practice look like? Are there any spells, rituals you do on a daily basis? Well, the main thing I do on a daily basis is my prayer or poem or whatever to Aurora, but I don't do that every day. Paying attention to my environment and being as mindful as possible. So if something pops up, I notice it. That's sort of a practice in and of itself. I don't do much in the way of spell work unless there's a need for it. And most of the time, I don't have a need for it. I just sort of go along and do stuff. Protection stuff, I do. So, and in the evenings, I energize the circle around the house and around my bedroom, and often see things while I'm going to sleep. That seems to be the time Spirit likes to approach me the most, especially the Fae, and show me something. Something was going on a couple of nights ago. I'm not sure what it was because one of my power animals was having a complete freak-out attack. But then nothing happened. I just sort of shored up my defenses. And I'm like, okay, so something apparently is being aimed in my direction, and I was getting an early warning or whatever it might be. It's always bizarre when your spirit bearer is standing on his hind legs and making faces with his jaw, with teeth, or her in this case. Yeah. So, and then when I get in my dreams, when I wake up, I often am presented with things. Sometimes I sleep with some of my wands or my crystals. I was sleeping with my Mercury wand the last couple of nights because Mercury is retrograde right now, and I'm trying to tune myself to the energy to help mitigate some of the potential backlashes from Mercury and notice the issues that might come up. We had a funny thing happen yesterday. Was it just yesterday that happened? Where we were watching TV.
Not so funny, but
Well, funny, odd. And what was it? Not the resistor, was it? Or the capacitor a capacitor exploded in in our Parasound amplifier. And I was glad that Ian was there because he was at the right angle to see the sparks coming out of it and the very loud pop that it made. So we turned everything off, and he's in the process of diagnosing and fixing it at this point. But yeah, it was sort of a surprise. And Mercury is well known to highlight potential weaknesses in things. And, it's an older piece of equipment, not as old as some of the other equipment, but still, apparently there was a catastrophic failure in that one item. And I'm just glad that we were both there when it happened so he could identify exactly what took place. And I didn't have to try and explain that something did something bad, but I wasn't sure where it came from. So that was fortuitous. And so you deal with that. But definitely being open to the communication. And I sleep with the different crystals at different times. And last night and the night before, I think I had my Fey wand around. And the first night with the Fey wand was when my bear was freaking out. I don't think it was related to that, though, because last night everything was calm again. So, trying to keep my mental space quiet so I don't get disturbed in the middle of the night and I can just do me. And then Ian made me that Taoist charged up stone for keeping external influences away, and I take that out of its silk bag when I go to bed at night, and it's become part of my stuff. I'm actually putting it on top of my piece of celestite. So, it's not like one thing in particular that I do all the time. It's just whatever seems to be the right thing to do at the time. I did more specific stuff in the beginning, like when I was learning from Starhawk's book, The Spiral Dance, and I was learning how to draw a circle, how to call in the elements, learning beginning about the elements from her point of view, using the pentagram, and understanding some of that. I had a foundation of symbolism from the Rider-Waite deck, the tarot cards, and so forth. But yeah, so that was when I was doing a lot of serious stuff, and I was doing like the cup transformation spell that I put up as a video, working on my own unconscious and my energy, doing some deeper of the shadow work kind of stuff, going through therapy at the same time. I had a counselor, a psychologist that I saw. I was addressing, while I was doing that, I was addressing some of the sexual abuse in the family, and actually reported my uncle to the authorities in New Jersey, even though it was too late to do anything about it. It made me feel better. That was, my psychologist was recommending that I do that, so I did. Trying to learn boundaries, and that takes a lot of practice. And starting to learn more about my own definitions of things, because you can't really explain yourself to someone if you don't know what you mean by what you say, if they get it wrong, I guess. But yeah, so, life is what I call it. Just sort of the way it is. Phoebe says she's going to find me on Patreon. Ryder says, I have experienced that too. People accusing me of attacking them or using dark magic towards them. I don't do that, and I don't know how. It feels terrible to be accused of it. Yeah, actually, my daughter's former husband, her first one, sent her this very weird message and says, you better take off what you put on me, or they'll be hell to pay. And we're going like, what? What is he talking about? We did some general protection stuff to keep him out of the house, when he was going crazy. And she was leaving him and stuff like that, but we did no overt magic against him. So there's nothing to take off. He's doing that to himself, apparently, as we talked earlier. He self-generated, I guess, a curse on himself. I don't know. Violet says, I ask for notifications, and I used to get them, and now I get none. I have no idea what happened to cancel that out. Well, you might want to click it off and click it back on again. You never know with their algorithms. Daniel says, girl, queen, you preach, you teach. You're the real deal. Ian is the lucky man. I'm about to dust myself off and be more of myself, because it's all about the real deal.
I agree. I'm a lucky man.
He agrees. He is a lucky man. Whoops. I hit the wrong button. Phoebe says, how do you energize your space? I call in the powers that be, and, not the powers that be. I call in the elements, and I have specific ways I call them. I draw the elemental pentagram for that element, pull it in, and put it out. Go all the way around. I do spirit above and spirit below. I connect them all together so that they're making a giant sphere. I go like that outward, and I spread it out from my room to the edges of my property to protect everything. I have I don't know what to call it. I have like a web, an alert web that I created when someone was sending these animals to attack me in the astral. And it's sort of like a blue spider web kind of thing that's on the outside of my energy field. So if something comes in that doesn't belong, it'll get stuck and alert me if I need to pay attention to it, shoot it back, so it doesn't bother me. I have both of us actually around our individual beds. I have a knife pointed in the floor with a copper wire wrapped around it and then wrapped around the frame of my bed to keep external thought forms and whatnot out of my sleeping area. So I'm just sleeping and with me and being myself. I have a lot of gods and goddesses in my room and all kinds of crystals, which are good for energizing a space. I have multiple wands that bring in their own energy. I have all the planets except for Jupiter, the main planets. I don't have Neptune and Pluto. I'm not planning on building one for them, or Uranus, however that's said. So I have my planetary wands. I've got 2 elemental wands. I have a banishing wand. I have my selenite next to the bed, and sometimes I use a piece of selenite. The last couple of nights when my bear was getting all upset, I grabbed one of my smaller chunks of selenite and started doing some aura cleaning and just sort of brushing down to make sure I didn't have anything that had attached itself to me without me noticing, and energize my energy field. And I have that next to my pillow, so if I need it in the middle of the night, I can use it. I also put my Mars talisman, well, it's not a talisman, I got a ruby, a natural ruby that I connected energetically with my Mars wand and charged it up for strength and power and stuff, and I put that under my pillow too, so it's still there actually. That's been under there for the last couple of nights. So I'm not sure exactly how to answer that more fully than that. I work with a lot of energies from different places. And get them in. So, Mama Sita's Love says, never seen your channel before, just got my first recommended at the time that you were also going live. There must be a reason I'm here. Good, welcome. Raina says, hello from Tennessee. I have plenty of fae out in my woods and around my home. Love your channel. Good, I like the fae too. Tam Miranda says, hey Shifra, how can we send strong positive energy to faraway loved ones? Well, you can do a candle and put their name on the candle, and then when you light the candle, you think about them. You can get a picture of them, put it on your altar, and whenever you see the picture, send energy. Ian's leaving the temple right now. So, yeah, visualize them, make a circle and of healing energy or whatever kind of energy you're trying to send, and send it to them. Because the mental plane and the astral plane are not limited by space and time. They're kind of like connected all together. Phoebe says, I find spell work too structured. Sometimes I think that's been part of what stopped me from diving in more. Well, yeah, there's a difference between spell work and doing rituals. They definitely have a different focus. There's no doubt. Dream Life Tarot says, nice Etsy store. Thank you. I need to make some more wands. I still have lots of wands I can make. But I got busy doing other projects, like finishing my shawl. I was really annoyed that I hadn't finished this yet. So Canary says, my toxic Christian family always accuses me of voodoo every time something goes wrong. Oh, God. Even if someone makes a bad choice that has zip to do with me. Yeah, they love to blame other people for their own problems. There's not much you can do about that. And you, Canary, you have to see the funny side to that. Yeah, I've considered playing it up and trying to do stupid, impossible things like make their Sunday dinner float because they would freak out. Ah, that would be awesome. I'm in favor of that. But yeah, that would definitely freak them out. I've actually started to keep a notepad and pen to take notes. There are so many good ideas. That would be funny if you could. Yes, it would. I, I'll tell him later that you said bye. Sometimes he ends up getting some anxiety. He's got the anxiety and the panic kind of stuff, and he was feeling anxiety before we started, so he did really well. He's almost here through the whole thing. So I would buy your shawl. I think it's beautiful. It takes a long time to make. I was amazed. And it takes a lot of yarn. I had to buy extra. Um, so let's see. Desideradum says, have you or Ian ever heard of a cryptid called the Wraith or Bodak? They're whitish humanoid kind of things, crawl on all fours, scream, attack people. What are those things? Well, I have not heard of them. I have seen what I call wall crawlers, and me and a bunch of other paranormal investigators have seen them. I don't know if they're similar. And they are kind of icky. So there's a lot of things out there I haven't met. You know, the whole planet. So I'm not versed in absolutely everything. Violet says, what do you do with that item on the stand behind you? Looks like a hypnotizer machine. Item on the stand. Oh, is that my earth ball again that people are noticing? Oops. I keep forgetting that's in the opposite direction. Are you talking about this? This is a globe, a brass globe of the planet, and it's filled with fluid condenser, and we charge it up when we do healing ceremonies to send healing to the earth so she can use it wherever she wants to. So it's kind of like a it becomes a power object in the sense that it's been through a lot of stuff and has been charged up a lot, but it's not a hypnotizer machine of any kind. It sits on three things. You're talking about this. That is my microphone. You're looking at my microphone. I love the ball. Yeah, that's the mic. And the thing around it is to stop the heater that's over on the other side of the room from overloading the mic so you guys can hear me. Because we were having difficulties at one point, and we went and researched and bought a specific mic for this. So that's what that is. All right. So we're actually getting up to our 1.5 hour mark here. So any last questions before I have to go? Actually, it's not raining today, so that's kind of nice. Guess not. Okay, no questions. Today we had no trolls. Yay. Keisha says, I like to carry copper, and I recently known it's great for the heart chakra. Now, copper is supposed to be good for arthritis and stuff like that, too. It can also turn you green. Copper's a nice metal, and it's related to Venus, which is probably why they say it's related to the heart chakra. So Ryder says, had a wonderful night again. Thank you. Always look forward to Sunday. It was fun hearing about you and Ian 30 years ago. Yeah. Have you been to Wiccan Fest in Ontario? My grandmother is Carol Murphy. No, I have not. I lived in British Columbia and Saskatchewan. I went to Medicine Wheels in the Okanagan Valley in British Columbia 4 years in a row. I went to some pagan events in British Columbia, women's festivals and stuff like that when I lived up there, but I was only in Ontario very briefly and never attended anything in that province. I'm in Massachusetts and identify as a magician. How can I bring peace in my awareness? Well, that's a big conversation. So what's the one thing you recommend doing every day regularly if we're new to start with? Finding a way to go outside, even if it's only for 5 minutes. close your eyes and feel the earth. Thank you. This was great. My daughter Kate found your channel looking up fairies. Well, that's awesome. Violet said tripod. That was it. Tripod. Okay. Thanks for the fun. Thank you all. Yes. And you guys are welcome. And we'll have lots of other stuff to talk about in the future, I'm sure. And I love having discussions with you guys, and it's lots of fun for me. So have yourself a great day. Bye.